This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome to the From Pain to Purpose radio show. I am your host, Eva Fulton. In this show, we explore the incredible journeys of resilience, healing, and transformation. In each episode, we will sit down with individuals who have faced unimaginable struggles and turned their pain into power, heartbreak into hope, and their challenges into meaningful change and finding new purpose in life. Through candid conversations and inspiring stories, we will uncover how pain, whether emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual, can be the catalyst for profound growth and a deeper sense of purpose. So if you are looking for motivation, insight, and real stories of triumph over adversity, you're in the right place. Let's get started on this journey from pain to purpose. Let's give veterans a voice through Military Broadcast Talk.
Hey, good morning, afternoon, evening. Yeah, it's okay. I'm dealing with a headache today. I'm Eva Fulton, your host. Today is March 21st, the year of our Lord, 2026. We're live here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, the day after my birthday. And I tell you, this has been one that's been epic for the books for anyway. You know, it's been an amazing experience. It's been the first time I've set back foot on an Army base and post. I'm supposed to say post, right? We are posts in the Army versus where's the Air Force? They have
a base.
Yeah. Theirs is different. It's different lingo. So anyways, it's been interesting to set foot on a big post that is interesting to see. The vibe is different, right? It just has a different feel. When I got out in 2000, that was from Germany. And I've been to some Air Force bases since then, but this was a little bit different feel. So on each of my right and left right here, I have Alissa and Newman and Anna Valancourt. I pronounced it right, yes? Yes. So they are with Project Valkyrie, and yesterday they hosted a Women in the Military Summit. And I haven't, like I said, I haven't really gotten into really talking to younger troops and seeing what the vibe is that's different. I think, there's some generational things that I could feel, but I also really appreciate what Project Valkyrie is doing. So I came here in more of my academic role and things because I was really impressed with what Project Valkyrie has been doing on the research side, which, is very, I think, much needed, especially going through my own dissertation experience and How do we help represent the female population, both from the veteran side and from the active duty side, that yields, I want to say, better results, right? Because if we're not asking the right questions, we're not going to get the right answers that help move the needle and going in the right direction. All right, so who wants to lead?
Go ahead, Alissa. All right, well, I can introduce myself and I think speak to some of the research side of the house. My name is Alissa Newman. I am the human performance lead and the research lead for the Valkyrie Project. I would describe myself as a first responder. So I was a EMT and firefighter in my 20s, like late teens, early 20s, and then went the strength coach route and then went the academic route. I have a PhD in exercise science with specific expertise in military performance. And I lead our research initiatives as well as I'm Valkyrie Project training programs, our physical training program. So that is kind of how I fit into the organization. And really it's been so awesome to like thinking about the research side, right? Women, we know, like in the physical training literature, have been very underrepresented. The stats are getting better, but it's still only about 30% of like sports science studies include women. A much smaller fraction of that are like specifically only women. And it's even lower on the military side, right? We know women represent about like 18% of the military. And so with a lot of those studies, they're like, oh, we have a very small female contingent, like only 18% of our population was female. And they're like, okay, well, that's representative. And so that's good. But then it's also like so hard to like getting research funding is so hard, especially with like the funding changes, the changes in funding priorities in the last couple of years. So it's like, okay, it was hard to begin with to get funding to do research on women. It's exponentially harder now. And so we just kind of said, okay, like we don't have the resources to do like the full-fledged, okay, here's our big study, but like we can still generate the data, right? Like we can leverage our platforms, leverage our connections, and we want to hear from active duty women. And so we last year sent out a big survey. We're continuing to build on it every year and to start to get those numbers to say, hey, we need more information on this. This is what we're getting at the ground level, and then push that up to researchers, to like academic partners, and say, hey, we need more information. This is a whole thing.
So what is the Valkyrie Project and designed to do?
I think as it like a whole,
because it's a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit organization that originally started, I want to say like 2015, and it originated. So the founder is a woman named Meg Tucker, and she was a Kiowa pilot in the Army. Okay. And then when they went away from the Kiowa, she had to find a new job, right? And she went into the special operations side of the house. She was psychological operations, and in that space realized that like, oh, there's not resources for women, right? There's like a ton of resources if you're a dude, but not anything like tailored specifically to women to help women succeed. And so the Valkyrie Project originated as like a training program is kind of what it was. She was providing physical training resources for women in special operations. And then in 2023, we got our nonprofit status, and it's really expanded from there outside of just like, okay, let's improve physical training, because right, she realized like the gaps are so big, right? It's not just physical training. It's getting the right gear and apparel. It's getting healthcare. It's advocacy. It's policy. It's all these things. And so I really think that like I would describe the origin story of the Valkyrie Project as like the idea of like becoming who you needed when you were younger. And so like Meg did that and then sent that forward to a whole bunch of women nationally, right, with the Valkyrie Project. So the short version is that our goal is to empower women across their service life cycle, right? With physical training, physical like health education, advocacy, policy, research, right? We're trying to cover all the bases.
For all branches. Yeah.
Yep.
And from what I saw, there was a big focus yesterday on folks. And I would, unless I, missing that takeaway, and that's because they would have the, I want to say the crux of, if it could go wrong, that's the population that has the highest risk versus somebody that's got an administrative position. Not that their job isn't important as well, but as the soft group are going to be the ones who are the most deployable and have to have gear function, physical fitness, diet, all of this, to have all those duckies in a row in order to be able to do their job well.
Yeah, I think that it does, and it has leaned a little bit more special operations, but I think largely because that was the origin of it, right?
Okay.
It started as more of a resource for women in special operations with Meg, and then Tristan Irwin is the secretary of our board. She was a civil affairs officer here at Fort Bragg. So they really kind of got the nonprofit piece of it together. And so it was more directed at women in special operations.
Okay.
And so that's who
the original target population
and so,
was.
Yeah, we've in the last year had conversations about important group, and we absolutely need to make sure that we're taking care of them. And women in the conventional force, absolutely need support as well, right? It's
well, because I experienced a lot of the same issues that they talked about yesterday. Boots not fitting correctly. I remember when I was deployed in Desert Storm, we got our tan boots that were 2 sizes too big, men's size, right? I wear a size 5 in boots, and they gave me a men's size 7. Yeah.
Oh boy.
He was huge. Flip-flopping around, in the sand. It was not easy. Yeah. But a lot of the other gear fit like that too, right? And I love the lady that was there yesterday, Catherine was talking about the special gloves, realizing that the glove fitting was not designed to meet a woman's hands. I mean, they were way, the splatter diagrams that she showed up there of where the sizing was supposed to be and where they were actually was not designed for a woman's hand at all, an inch off of the pinky.
Oh yeah, you're wearing your dad's gardening gloves.
Yeah,
trying to pick stuff up.
But I had the same issues. But I, quite frankly, I think I never thought about needing to, just modifying it,
right?
Cutting it off and modifying. I just didn't because things were always on the go. You didn't think about making those kinds of changes. And then when you're deployed, you don't have a needle and a thread with you to, do that kind of stuff. But even the other stuff with the plates, when they were talking about getting choked by the flak vest and stuff, and I was like, yep, been there, done that.
It's you don't know what you're missing out on until you see what the possibilities are. So it's all this new innovations coming out, and you're like, oh wow, it could be better.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this way, guys.
Yeah.
All right. So Anna.
Yeah. I am a longtime military spouse. My husband did 23 years in the Army. I just followed him around everywhere and found that the easiest thing to do was to be a CrossFit coach, because I could bring that all over the world. And then I was like, this isn't enough. I was constantly getting hurt and doing stuff. And I was like, I need a better way to do this. And I was in college, originally going for psychology. And then I was like, wait, I really like fitness. I never did anything fitness related in high school. I totally revamped everything and went into the exercise science program, got my bachelor's in exercise science. And I was like, oh, strength and conditioning coach? What is this? This is way more science behind this. So we went into that, and then I ended up getting pregnant, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to know more about this, because no one had any information. There's still really no information, because, it's kind of inhumane to test if a baby can make it through a pregnancy if you do all these things, so it has to be really just like lived experience. And that's kind of what everybody has to go off of. I mean, research is like exploding right now in this field, which is good. But because I was always in military towns, military places, like I was always working with some kind of like military personnel, but then I found like my like most love with like pregnancy and postpartum, because that's what resonated with me. Like being a mom, I moved when I had a 6-week-old baby, and I was like, how do I make friends? Oh, we get together at the park and we work out. Like, so we use No Excuse Moms, which is like another nonprofit that is in a lot of like military towns as well. And we started all working out together, and I was like, I can use my expertise here. And so I used my strength and conditioning expertise, went from there. And then we moved to Germany for a while, kind of got out of the game, but then we came back and I helped open a CrossFit gym at Fort Bragg, and like got even more hands-on experience by doing like physical therapy, like bridge back into CrossFit. And I had a mom's class there that thrived. It was huge. It was so much fun. And then I went to H2F, and that's how I got back into the tactical space, like full time. I built a P3T program that's still being used for the 82nd Sustainment Brigade. It also is used at Division and 18 Airborne Corps for the athletes or tactical athletes. And we've like shown that it has actually made soldiers stronger than they were before pregnancy, and they were scoring between 60 to 100 points above what they were doing pre-pregnancy.
Wow.
Before they even graduated the year postpartum from the program. And it's just from using simple science and simple strength and conditioning programming. And then I got my master's degree in sports psychology while I was there, and I've been working with that ever since. Train people online now and do all the pregnancy and postpartum programming for the Valkyrie Project.
But you said
P3T.
Okay.
So it's the Army's physical fitness program for pregnancy and postpartum.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't think when I was active duty they had a name for that.
Yeah. So it's
It
come
was
and
go
gone.
walk around for a while.
Yeah. And that's what it was even when I came in. I was like, this is 2021. And they're like, how can we go to IHOP again and walk the track? Because that's how we think we want to do. But they just didn't have direction. They didn't know what to do.
Active duty women?
Yeah,
you were saying
the active
that?
duty.
Okay.
And it's a requirement to enroll in P3T by 20 weeks pregnant.
Okay.
So you are forced into the program, which is great. And so most people don't want to come because they thought it was IHOP and walking the track. And they want to stay with their units, and they want to stay with their people. And so like we had to like prove to them like, hey, like this is fun. We can like do stuff. And once they got bought in, like the program grew a ton. But yeah, you're required to be there through your whole pregnancy. And then you come back from your parental leave, which is 3 to 4 months, depending. And then you get till 1 year, till your baby turns 1 year to go back to unit PT.
Okay.
You can opt out if you have medical reasons. At 6 months, like as long as you get medical clearance, you can go back to unit PT at 6 months. Some people do. But now we're finding that they want to stay because they get that continuity of 5 days a week. You're in the gym, following the same program. It's not just like a thrown together workout of the day type of thing. And you're progressing and like getting better every day. So we've had really good success.
So they feel like it's better than the normal unit PT?
Yeah, because it can be sporadic. Then they can't be pulled for like any reason by the unit, unless it's like something really big happening. Like you'll see it here and there, like first sergeant, like I really need this person today.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they're still getting 3 days a week at least in.
Right.
Unlike, you know, sometimes PT gets canceled because you have a range early or like something like that. And it kind of hops around like, oh, we're having Sergeant so-and-so lead PT today, and it's going to be totally different than what we were doing last week. And that like continuity and like progression isn't there for good programming. So they don't see like the gains, you know, that they want to see because they're not following the same kind of programming to get that like continued progression through things. So a lot of people are like, I don't want to leave, or like, maybe I should get pregnant again and like stay there for a while. So like, I'm like, okay.
There's consequences to
Yeah,
that.
I know.
Yeah, that's my first response on that one. A baby does not always serve as a good excuse things.
Yeah, I know. I'm like and the advocacy there is huge, because when we first started and like we made it mandatory and like the policy went in place, like a lot of people were like, well, we can pull them for this, or we can do it for that, or we can go bring them back early for this reason or whatever. And it's like this protective policy has actually gone a long ways because they can't be pulled.
Well, it makes sense, you know.
Mhm.
So I was active duty with 2 pregnancies.
Mhm.
The first one went pretty well. And that was I was at Hunter Army Airfield in
Okay.
Georgia, and
Mhm.
actually got to have a civilian doctor because I
Oh.
lived in Savannah.
Yeah, so you're far enough out.
So I didn't have to go to Fort Stewart for
Yeah.
medical care because they did deem me high risk anyway. So
Okay,
I
yeah.
got to go to a civilian doctor when I was active duty back in '94. So it's
Good.
probably a rarity back
Yeah,
then.
you really were.
But then the second pregnancy I had active duty was a very trying one. I had a marginal placenta previa,
Oh, yeah.
and they airbacked me from Fort Hood to Fort Sam,
Mhm.
and I spent, I think, 6 weeks antepartum in the old hospital at
Yeah.
Fort Sam
Mhm.
with a roll around phone. It was a roll around payphone that they would plug in. And, you know, you can only imagine, right? That's what they had
Like,
in the
call
maternity
me.
ward.
Call
It was
me.
horrible.
Yeah.
And then I spent 6 weeks at home,
Mhm.
and because we had moved, I bought a house during the antepartum
Mhm.
and then moved, and then still delivered 6 weeks early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my son was born 3 pounds, 6 ounces,
Oh, man.
right? 5 pounds, 6 ounces. Maybe it's 5 pounds, 6 ounces.
Yeah,
So
still
6 weeks
little.
early,
Yeah.
5 pounds, 6 ounces.
Mhm.
Both of them were very jaundiced though. So the second one ended up back in the hospital
Mhm.
at Fort Hood.
Okay.
But that was airvac twice. I was airvac back to Fort
Oh my
Sam
gosh.
to deliver the baby
Yeah.
because Fort Hood did not have a NICU.
The
Yeah, they didn't have
capability.
NICU. So
Mhm.
they airvac'd me back to Fort Sam to
Yeah.
deliver.
Yeah.
It was a horrible pregnancy.
Oof.
Definitely a horrible pregnancy.
Yeah.
That's really rough.
That's
Yeah.
very rough.
Fortunately, the other 2 were after, you know,
Yeah.
getting out of the military. So what do you think was, you know, there's a good population yesterday
Oh, yeah, definitely.
in attendance, but I think y'all had a larger one last year.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That was a 2-day event, but I saw there were 2 sergeant majors who were friends
Mhm.
that were sitting at the table I was sitting at,
Yeah.
they're retiring at the end of this month and I think next month,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So I gave them each a copy of my book and
Mhm.
said, "Welcome to the Veteran Club." You
Yeah, it's gonna be a big day for them really
Yes.
soon. It's a
Yeah.
big transition.
It is, but it was neat to see that they
Yeah.
were getting to have this experience.
Mhm.
I think probably really just even meeting other veterans, right?
Mhm.
That they are getting to it's not about just TAPS. It's you know, I think it's the transition of
Mhm.
things and
Very
knowing that
much so.
they can now own part of the legacy of becoming a voice to help other people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and when veterans use their voice, it really helps others. You know, like some like to stay really quiet and like go off into the real world, into the civilian world. And I think it's great that like anyone that's able to bring the veterans together and like see that camaraderie again outside of the military is really great. So like you being able to reach out to them is like awesome. Like be like, welcome to the club. Like it's about to be a ride.
And I think that one of the things that like we like, you know, we scaled down the symposium this year for a number of reasons, but it was like so important to us to still find a way to do that, because I think that community piece is so important, right? For our active duty service members, for our veterans, our retirees, like because the military is such a unique community, like staying connected to that, I think is so important. And for like young service members coming up to have somebody to talk to, right? I was talking with Ryan, our photographer, and just like how, because we often have women that are like one of one, one of two, one of three, one of four, like you don't realize how universal your experience is because you don't have anybody to talk to about it. And then you get in these rooms and you're like, oh, I'm having a like extremely normal experience. And right, so to like continue to connect to that community and to bring people together, I think is like absolutely drove us to put something in person together, kind of like no matter what.
Yeah. I remember there was, I don't know if y'all saw, but there was a first sergeant that came into the room.
Yes.
And
he brought one of his junior enlisted.
Yes. Yes.
That was huge.
Yeah. I heard him telling, what was her name? I don't know. She was a retired lieutenant colonel, the one that was sitting at the table also. She was doing, I don't know all y'all's names. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
One of y'all running around. She was
doing the
announcing on the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyways, so he spoke with her and he goes, you know, she's brand new. She's 11 Bravo.
Oh, geez, okay.
Yeah. So she was an 11 Bravo infantry guys. And he said she's top notch. But I think she doesn't quite feel connected, you know, but she's definitely wants to be engaged, wants to know the community. He goes, I'm doing my best to help support her. I'm getting goosebumps just, you know, because I felt really empowered that this first sergeant cared that much about her, that
he reached out. He's like, nope, she's going to come. She'll be there. I'm so she needs this community, and he was like invested in her long-term career, which is huge.
It is huge.
See, because a lot of those young soldiers, especially female soldiers, they get intimidated sometimes coming to their first post. I saw it a lot because we get a lot of new soldiers when I worked for H2F, and they were so intimidated by coming in, and they're like, Bragg is so big, you know, like
it is huge.
And finding that little female community to like just give you that just little bit more like friendliness and like community to go to. I think that was huge. And like she was so nervous when she came into the door, and she was just so happy to be there by the time she left, and just so like you could see it in her face that I was like, this was good. This is gonna make her want to be in the military that much longer. And like I was like, man, that was a life-changing moment, I think, for her. I mean, I'm only speaking.
No, that's awesome. But to have that kind of support, you know, I feel very fortunate. When I was active duty, I think part of it was the job that I was in as a paralegal in JAG, that it was a very mixed, you know, it was always very co-ed. You know, basic training was at Fort McClellan, but that was all female. But it was when we got to AIT, which was at Fort Ben Harrison and has since closed, but it was co-ed. And all of my units have always been very co-ed. I feel very fortunate that I didn't have any issues. I did my motor pool stuff, and, you know, I carried my weight, you know, but that was important. But I think that is a mindset as well. You know?
A lot of those A-type personalities. And like, I think we see that a lot. Like sometimes it's like, we're here to empower everybody, but sometimes like they're already going so hard. So now we need to focus on like how do you recover and how do you like shut off that A type?
Yeah, honestly,
Exactly.
I feel
Grace.
like I don't know what your experience is, Anna, but I feel like the more high achieving people I work with, like the people who are like, let's get in and get after it. Like my job becomes less about like, let me tell you what to do, and more like, let me help you get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Like,
or relax.
yeah. Or I think just to even have perspective, right? Like it's not even necessarily like relax, but like understanding like unto what are we doing this, right?
Yeah. This is long.
Are you doing it for the sake of doing it, or is there some?
But sometimes like everything feels important, and so you just need somebody to be like, that's actually not important, and to like keep perspective and like understand like who's not, and I feel like sometimes I get like this with my own athletic pursuits, that I just get so laser focused on what it is that I'm doing that I just like I'm like the only answer is to work harder, and I just need somebody to be like, no. Like you can chill and like remember that this is a long-term thing. And one of the things that I love about military performance is that like you have to think about, it's not just like, oh, how do I peak for this 4-month block for my sport, right? It's like, how do I perform at a high level for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? How do we get you from brand new soldier to like being able to retire on your own terms? And that's a much different approach to fitness than like, I need you to be at your best for 2 years.
I think that's important. And I also see the aspect of, when I got out, I was like, thank God nobody's telling me to go work anymore. No, there's no work, right?
Yeah.
No working out. Nobody's telling me to go to PT. And then I was like, I woke up one day and realized you need to tell yourself to go to PT. It's okay. Do it for you now. And I think there's that difference of giving yourself, I want to say permission, right? To own that the military taught me some very foundational things, that it was okay to pick back up again and do it for me, not because I was being forced to do it.
Yeah. And that's a big perspective change in like the veteran community. It's like, oh, I'm not being told to do it. So what do I like to do? Because you were training for your job, you were training for a certain fitness test, you were training, to be good at like a few things that pertain to your career to help you advance. Survival. Yeah, exactly. And now you're like, oh, I have the opportunity to choose what I get to do and like have like wellness goals versus like, job goals. Like, it's a big mind shift I've seen as well. And so like getting them to that point though, where they're hitting retirement and they're like, I still feel good enough to do this. I'm not broken because of this work, or like literally just bringing the needle back a little bit, because most of the time they're overworking, they're underfueling, and they're overthinking everything they're doing and do their best. And like now they get the freedom to rest a little bit more. And like if we get a hold of them 10 years into their career or 15 years into their career, they might already have a lot of injuries and like stuff going on. But like if we can rehab them almost, like bridge that gap of like these little things that have gone wrong from jumping out of airplanes or some kind of
car wrecks,
like just life, just running every day all day because that's all they knew before. Like if we can like rehab and find like their imbalances and stuff like that, like it's huge and it's life-changing, and it's like it should be the standard.
1,000%. And even just thinking about working out after you get out of the military, right? Like, oh, now you don't have to do this and you get the opportunity to do whatever you want. And like I think that there's because with athletes sometimes they're like, oh, you have to accept the fact that like you're never going to be as good as you were, right? Like it's a different space. Like it's you're not maybe going to be able to do all the things that you were doing because you're not in that space. You're not training 90 minutes a day, 5 days a week or 7 days a week or whatever. Right. And so I think it's like giving yourself grace to say, okay, that was a past version of me. And I don't actually need, like, that's a different person. And I don't need to be comparing myself to a different person. 1,000% easier said than done. Like, and I think that there's like so much education too around like, how do you move well? Because I think you move and people figure it out and they're like, I need you to do this thing, and they find a way to do that thing, and whether or not that's like good and healthy for you to be doing it that way long term is a different question, right? But to give them that education and like, this is how to move and this is how to feel good in your body, and here's permission to explore, like, I think that there's so much that doesn't get talked about. It's just like, here's your DD-214, goodbye, good luck.
And that pertains a lot to the pregnancy and postpartum, because like, they're high achievers that come into this program and like, they're like, why can't I do what I was doing? I was doing it just fine. And it's like, you can do that, but let's find the important things in that can support you through this. But you're going to have to not have your old standard that's way up here. And you're going to have to take a year or two to get back up to that. But it's important to do the base level stuff now and like get that flexibility, mobility, like
your body changed because of pregnancy. And now it's got to do some healing.
It has
to. You grew a whole human.
Give yourself grace. And I, more than anything, I had people coming back like 12 weeks postpartum and they're like, I need to make tape today. And I'm like, no, you don't. You have a year. And they're like, no, it's going to go bad. And like, they're so worried. And it's like, I get it. I would be worried. You know, if I was in their shoes, I'd be wanting to perform my best. But like the education, like you said, like it's a stigma. Oh yeah.
You know, it's a culture stigma problem, you know, and that's why I was, you know, Leah Stiles with Sea Waves has been, you know, she's been a guest on my show before, and
she's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, she is. And she's definitely, I think, speaking the right language to help a lot of women. But I get it that even the guys have issues as well. You know, they just don't talk about that they have issues. So let's cover, I think, one of the important things, you had the 2025 report that was published, a month and a half or so ago. So what were the big takeaways, do you think, from your 2025 report?
So actually, I think we published that in September of last year.
Sorry.
But maybe it's been only more recently floating around, but it's out there. It's available on our website. Shameless plug to go read it. And I think that there was like some encouraging stuff where like, and some of it kind of felt like low hanging fruit, like grooming standards, like you can now wear your hair in a ponytail so your bun doesn't push your helmet up over your face, like outstanding. We love that. And I think that there are like, you know, H2F has been so huge on the Army side of the house in terms of improving, I think just access to resources. But I mean, I think by and large there are, it's hard to really summarize that in like a short amount of time.
It does seem like things are trending in the right way, slowly, way more slow than we want it to be.
Yes.
But there's a lot of positives in that research. So being able to go and look at it and read it and see even like what you can take away from it, but also joining the research and signing up for, like we talked about, the clothing fittings and stuff like that. That's a huge thing to even be a part of, because without people participating, there's less.
And I think having those numbers are so persuasive. Like we have anecdotes and all those things, but translating those into like, here's some hard numbers, right? That is, for better or for worse, what moves the needle. If you could say, listen, 66% of women report sexual harassment at some point in their career, like, yikes, right? And that's just ours. That's not like, if you look at the larger studies, it's like, it's been reported up to like 90%, which is a horrific.
Because I think some of it goes into that gray area where there's grooming without, an overt action. I mean, I was reading something on a blog yesterday that there was a sergeant first class who was demoted to an E4 because he did not report somebody reported something and they made a written statement and then he still withheld the information that his higher ups.
Mhm.
So I think there is some more accountability that is starting to finally come through.
Mhm.
And I don't know, how that changed over the years, because I was JAG, right?
Mhm.
I was a paralegal.
Mhm.
You
And
gotta hear the worst of it.
Oh, yeah.
Probably.
we took the reports that
Mhm.
came in seriously. And I
Mhm.
get it. It's about somebody's job,
Mhm.
but there was a certain command and discipline
Mhm.
when I was in
Mhm.
that maybe seems like it's kind of lost its way over the years. And, I think that maybe that's where we're trying to find that
Mhm.
shift. How do we instill the command and discipline and not always point out that it's the victim's fault?
Right. And I think victim blaming, like will spare you my
Yeah.
whole rant, because like that will be the rest of this show, right? Like blaming victims for stuff is so dumb. Don't do it. But I think also and I think that's where the value of community and mentorship and like my own
Yes.
experience, like on the fire department, I was one of 2 women, right? And so, and we were on different shifts, like we had very different experiences, and there was so much stuff that like in hindsight, I wish somebody would have been like, no, that's not normal. That's
Yeah.
not normal.
Right.
You don't like, this should not be happening to you. Or you
Mhm.
you just like, for me, I didn't want to, like, I already got so much messaging that like I didn't belong here. I was supposed to be here. So like, I didn't want to make any more trouble. Right. So there's just a lot of stuff where you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna like deal with this. Because I like that's the cost of fitting in the space.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think that's such a murky area. And then again, if you don't know, like I was 19, right? So like when I was started on the fire department, I was a baby. And so to not have like, I didn't have language to talk about, like, I'm like, this feels wrong, but like maybe this is just, maybe I'm being paranoid. And so like,
It's the communication factor, and then probably not necessarily can you find the words to tell it,
Right.
but who do you tell it to?
Exactly. So I think that there's like so much of that too. So being able to like be in community with women and be like, hey, this is happening. And they're like, oh no, like this.
Yeah.
When I like started to have conversations about things, like people were like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah,
And I was
that's-
like, oh no. So,
Yeah, and I think the Valkyrie Project does a great job being able to like talk about these topics that no one else is talking about, and giving everybody the resources to like know how to report things and like
Yeah.
know what's wrong. And it's not just you, and it's not just, you're not alone in this. And like the research that has been done, has really helped move it forward. But like just us having a presence and like having this symposium for women, like I think having it at Bragg is going to really explode, because center of the universe.
There's a validation in it.
Yeah.
One of the takeaways, I did a bunch of screenshots
perfect,
yesterday, was about the women's health. 79% of respondents feel that their healthcare providers have dismissed or not fully acknowledged women's health issues. And then 75 of respondents stated that their providers have never inquired about their life course challenges, including pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, and reproductive health. And I'm gonna say that probably plugs in not just from the active duty side, but then flipping it over into the veteran space as well, because there has been plenty of resources out there, I think, for guys and getting testosterone assistance, but there's not been help for women on, where do we lose? We don't get that same kind of help on perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah.
There is the estrogen assistance isn't there. We don't have those conversations. Here, when I was active duty, here's the birth control pills. Here's the birth control pills.
Yeah.
And I'm driving through Fayetteville, and there's a Planned Parenthood, and there's a women's health clinic that you knew that was just another name for Planned Parenthood. And I was like, that's what they want the answer to be. But then we still have to have the dialogue about, our own actions and not getting ourselves into trouble because we're so surrounded. I'm speaking from the active duty side, that now that you're surrounded by all the guys. I mean, this even happened when I was in Desert Storm, that we had a couple of females that had some issues. One of them, they got banned to the crab tent. Okay, they got the crab tent. And yeah, and we all knew it, you know, but all right, it wasn't hard to figure out what they were doing. And we have to help ourselves and watch our own actions. But just because you're surrounded by guys doesn't mean that you have to watch your own behaviors.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. And I think that, like, again, like towing that line between, okay, I need to be accountable for what I'm doing. And also like that sort of like is like, there's such a fine line between that, like assigning accountability and like victim blaming. To me. That like, okay, maybe right, I need to make good choices, but also like, I need to be able to trust the people next to me.
Right. But I've got to be part of the solution, not part of the problem to begin with, both male and female.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Very much so.
So how do we, I mean, if, you know, I know on the VA side, we have, you know, women advocates, you know, that's at the hospital. And I have had to use one to help get assistance before, but that was a special case. And I don't know if they have that active duty to be able to, how does the active duty female communicate that she's not being heard, right?
Ooh, that's, I think, tough. I will be honest, I'm not as familiar with like the, all the healthcare models within like the active duty, so like TRICARE and all those things. I think so much of it is like at this point, unfortunately, it's educating yourself. It's understanding like what sorts of things to ask. It's how to advocate for yourself. And like, and I'd love to hear your opinions on this too, like being in a medical space right now, that like, I think this idea of health literacy, that like, okay, I understand what's going on. I understand how to communicate with these doctors. I understand what kind of questions to ask. I understand when to like push back. Cause I think that there's like, you know, women get dismissed, like we were talking about, like women get dismissed all the time. Like I was running those statistics and I was like, this is horrific. That like almost 80% of women feel like they are unheard by their doctors. Like, but it's so normal, right? And that they're just like, oh, well, it's hormones. Here's some birth control. And you're like, you what? Or they're like, oh, that's
getting
older. And you're like, stop it.
And the like, sweats are okay. So, you know, just deal with it. Just deal with it.
Or we were even talking about like all this pelvic floor issue stuff. And we're like, oh, I pee a little bit when I lift. And they're like, oh, just pee before you exercise. And you're like, well, thank you. I didn't think about that. Wow.
But I like to not pee.
Right. Well, but it's like, no, I do. But it's like, you know, and it's like, okay, thank you for that solution. And they're like, well, here's some Motrin and see you later. Bye. So I think at this point, I think it's like a two-pronged approach. I think for women themselves is understanding your own body and like trusting that your reality is your reality. Like there is, if you feel like something's going on, it probably is. And you need to like push back. And again, easier said than done, but like understanding like what your resources are, understanding like, you know, even like not being afraid to say, hey, I hear you, and you want to just push off this as something, but there's something going on. What is going to make me feel good as your patient is if we do further testing. What further testing would you recommend? How do I know that this isn't fine? Like, tell me, like, at what point do you get concerned about what's going on with me? And then I think on the flip side, it's so important for providers, both men and women, right? That like to listen to women, to believe women, and to start more on like how wildly different women can present with medical things like perimenopause, menopause. Like those are such like so specific or like heterogeneous responses like across women that like there's not necessarily good research because I'm having this thing and you're having this thing and you're having this thing and we're all like you know,
Yeah.
going through the same experience, but it looks so different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that
I
would
would-
be
I would
my,
think,
my
probably-
7 cents on that.
Probably
Yeah.
the one thing that has saved me, and it took for a long time. It took 18
Mhm.
years for me to get my 100%, but I had very well documented medical files. I had 2 volumes when I got out. But you know, you got to remember, I had a really horrific car wreck on my birthday, March 20th, 1992. That I probably could have, should have died from. I mean,
Mhm.
seriously. But it's been this mixed blessing in many ways. So very painful over the
Mhm.
years, but also, you know, very much a blessing. But when you're active duty, make sure you go to sick call. I'm not saying abuse sick
Keep
call,
all your records.
but keep a copy of your records.
Yeah.
Know when you have issues and make sure you get documented. So my car wreck, there was a line of duty on it, you know. So the line of duty documented everything. I had pictures of my car that, you know, when I finally submitted it with my last claim and said, hey, this was not just some fender bender. This was an MPT'd my car going 55 to 65 miles an hour.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They had to use the jaws of life to get me out of my car.
Mhm.
My seat folded in half lengthwise. I had 3 pelvic fractures, 2 knee fractures, 2 ankle fractures. It's messed up my back, and you
Yeah.
know, it's been a journey, but it was very well documented. And you know, that, folks, whether you're male or female, has been one of the things that is very important.
Yeah, I would add, like, going back to like how to get better help is like you said, like make sure everything's documented.
Go to
Make sure-
therapy.
Yeah.
Make sure you go to your physical therapy.
Yep.
Don't cheat yourself.
Always
on that.
get printouts of everything, but also you have to be your own advocate, because like no matter what, like the system is like overburdened. Most of these doctors that are seeing people now, they're very like overpaneled. And so being your own advocate and being like, okay, so XYZ is happening to me. I'm going to put it in the Google machine. And like, I know Google's not always right. It probably is going to tell you you're dying, but like
The second worst case scenario.
but like write down some things and like write down a journal. Like, okay, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I had hot flashes, but today I'm cold, you know, like what did I do differently these days? And like, I've seen that go so much further, just being your own advocate and being like, oh, I started taking this supplement, or I stopped taking this vitamin, and this all changed. And like, this is, and like that gives everybody the proof that you're not crazy. Because unfortunately, like a lot of it gets brushed off. And if you don't have full documentation, like I go into doctor's appointments, like especially when I was at Womack, like I'd go in like with a whole like printout of like, okay, this day was this day was this, like I think I need this and this. And it's like, it sucks that you have to be your own researcher, but
But you
like
took your own data. You
Yeah.
took your own
and I got
symptom
help.
list.
Like-
Well, that's important. You know, that's important to help people.
Yeah.
Um,
Like it's so hard to do, but
so we have a couple of minutes left.
okay.
What do you think is the direction for research? And I'm going to caveat that because, you know, even when I was looking at doing my own dissertation, everything was, well, you can't talk to people that are active duty. IRB is not going to prove that. So everything was just a roadblock to do that, which means that I can only focus on the veteran population. So I don't know. Do you have any insight in that side of things?
Yeah. So actually, I was working in, I did work with active duty military as part of my postdoc, and then worked with the Army RTC program during my PhD as well. And so there are some extra considerations from the IRB for doing that work, but it is certainly possible, right? There's just a kind of another layer because military members are considered a protected population.
Right.
There's additional layers of consideration. And so people sometimes don't
approval from
take that
DOD probably?
It depends on the scope of the work.
Okay.
It depends on the scope of the work and the funding and all those things. So, and then there can be also a lot of challenges, like trying to get into units to do. You can, go establish a relationship with a commander and they're like all about it, and then they leave, and then you go like go sell yourself to the next person, and they're like, I don't think we do research here, and you're like, cool, bye. But I think that's one of the one of the coolest things about the way that we're doing it is like we're not a DoD entity. We're not trying to go through an IRB. Like we are taking, we're being very careful and methodical and ethical about our research, but I think it allows us a lot more room to move, right? And so we're able to get stories and to get anecdotes and data. And I think that what we're then able to do is take that and say, okay, go to our academic partners and go to our unit leaders and say, hey, this is a problem. I don't know if you know that this is, but like essentially pilot data, right? I don't know that you know that this is a problem, but this is a real problem, right? And get the people like in the research spaces to be like, hey, this is a problem we need to solve, and then go to that unit and be like, hey, this is a problem to solve. We have people who would like to solve it for you. Like, can we all pretty please work together and make this happen?
Has that been received so very well so far, do you think? Or
I think that's not something that we've necessarily, like, making those connections hasn't been like a huge line of effort for us at this point. But our hope is to be able to do that in the future as we continue to build on our research. And, we are launching our 2026 survey in the coming weeks. And so then we'll be able to like get that longitudinal data and to say, okay, hey, last year this was this, and now it's this. And like, okay.
So you can just start doing some trend analysis to see is the needle moving in some of these areas, or
and in which direction, right? Like, are we getting worse? So I think, and then we can also so I think that there's yes, let's do the research, but then also we can push that to policymakers, and we can say, listen, this is happening.
But the gamut's pretty open on the future research because there's so little research on females. Even when I was doing my literature review, very little research on female veterans. But a lot of the recommendations are like, well, why don't you do some comparisons to female to male, which was still trying to minimize our voices. I thought. I was a little disheartened about, let's do a combined approach to compare both. And I get it, there is a need for compare contrast, but then if you're looking at the population size, you're getting less females in that population overall. That is still minimizing the voice.
And then I think it becomes like, how are women different than men, as opposed to like, what do women need?
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, we're going to thank you all for joining and, doing this live and getting to participate this year. Hopefully, welcome back to come back next year to Valkyrie. Y'all are, I think, a phenomenal organization and headed in the right direction to have our voices, from that academic level of things. That's so important. So speaking of academics, Dr. Yost, I think I'm saying her name right. Sorry, I don't have my little cheat sheet up there on the screen. But Dr. Yost is joining us next Saturday to talk about how to advocate for your child who is facing medical issues. And I think that's going to be pretty important for all kinds of populations, whether you're active duty, veteran, or whatever, civilian. So my daughter actually gave me some permission to even talk about how I was able to help advocate for her medical condition a couple of years ago. So thank you all for joining us, and be blessed, everybody. Join me and Daryl Monday for the Revivalist Radio Show, Genesis chapter 32, as we continue the saga and drama with Jacob and his family. So anyways, y'all have a great day.
Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.